Let me pose a question to you. What if the most powerful action you could take to protect yourself from cancer after 60 had nothing to do with costly medications, complex treatments, or anything your doctor has likely already advised? What if it was something so surprisingly simple that most people completely overlook it? And what if the science supporting it has been quietly documented in medical journals for years, confirming what only a select group of oncologists already understood? Stay with me because over the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that fundamentally changed how I advise my patients, and I believe it could transform how you think about your own health forever. I'm Dr. Lina Laurent. For over 2 decades, I've worked with patients facing cancer, from early prevention discussions to late stage diagnoses I never wanted to deliver. I've sat across from thousands of individuals in that consultation room, and for much of my career, I've asked myself the same question again and again: what could we have done differently? After 20 years, I finally have an answer, not a complete one. Cancer is complex, and no single habit can prevent every case, but there is one daily behavior whose connection to cancer risk is so thoroughly documented, so consistently replicated across multiple cancer types, that I believe every person over 60 deserves to understand it clearly. Most of you have never heard it explained this way. By the end of this video, you'll know not only what the habit is, but also why it works at the cellular level, how much of it you need, and the specific mistake that cancels out all its benefits. Before we begin, I need you to promise me one thing. Don't click away when I reveal the habit. Your first reaction will likely be, I already know that, and I'm telling you now, you don't know what I'm about to share about it. The research goes far deeper than most people realize. Stay with me. Before naming the habit, I need to explain the biological reality that makes it so crucial. Without this foundation, the habit might sound like generic wellness advice. With it, it becomes something entirely different. Here's what's happening inside your body right now, something most doctors never explain to their patients. Every single day, your body produces cells containing genetic errors. This isn't abnormal, it's biology. Your DNA replicates billions of times over your lifetime, and errors are inevitable. In a healthy body, three systems work together to detect and eliminate those errors before they turn into cancer. DNA repair enzymes identify and correct mutations. Your immune system, particularly natural killer cells and cytotoxic T lymphocytes, detects and destroys abnormal cells. Apoptosis, or programmed cell death, instructs damaged cells to self-destruct before they can replicate. These three systems form your body's cancer defense architecture. They were designed for exactly this purpose. Here's the issue. After 60, all three systems start to slow down. DNA repair enzymes become less efficient. Natural killer cell activity declines. The apoptosis mechanism becomes less responsive. This isn't a disease, it's aging. But it means the cells with genetic errors your body caught and eliminated at 40 are more likely to slip through the defenses at 65. The margin for error shrinks. The daily maintenance of these three systems becomes more critical than ever. And this is where the habit comes in. Because what researchers have discovered, study after study, across cancer type after cancer type, is that one specific daily behavior directly enhances all three of these systems simultaneously. It boosts DNA repair enzyme activity, it increases natural killer cell count and function, and it promotes the apoptosis response in precancerous cells. One habit, three mechanisms, all working in the same direction. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Victor. Victor was 67, a retired accountant, precise, methodical, the kind of person who tracked everything. He came to me after a routine colonoscopy revealed three precancerous polyps. Not cancer, but precancerous cells moving in the wrong direction. Victor was terrified. His father had died of colorectal cancer. His brother had been treated for prostate cancer 5 years earlier. He sat across from me and asked the question I've heard hundreds of times. What do I do now? I told him about the habit. I explained the research. I gave him a specific protocol and asked him to commit to it for 6 months before his next colonoscopy. We'll return to Victor's story because what his follow-up revealed is one of the most meaningful outcomes I've witnessed in 20 years of practice. The habit is physical movement. More specifically, and this is the detail most people miss entirely, it's consistent, moderate intensity physical activity, Not intense exercise, not marathon training, not gym memberships. It's consistent, moderate movement performed most days of the week. I want to be precise about what the research actually says because the popular understanding of exercise and cancer prevention is often vague. So vague that people either do too little or give up, believing they need to do too much. Here's what the science shows. A landmark meta analysis published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, examining data from over 1.44 million adults, found that higher levels of leisure time physical activity were associated with a significantly lower risk of 13 different cancer types. Not just one cancer, 13, including colon, breast, endometrial, kidney, gastric, bladder, esophageal, and others. The risk reduction ranged from 10% to over 40%, depending on the cancer type and activity level. These aren't small numbers. A 40% risk reduction for a disease with the mortality profile of many of these cancers is clinically extraordinary. A separate analysis in JAMA Internal Medicine found that adults who met the standard physical activity guidelines, 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week, had meaningfully lower cancer mortality rates than sedentary adults. Let me repeat that. 150 minutes per week. That's 21 minutes per day, a 20-minute walk. Let me say it again because it needs to sink in. 20 minutes of brisk walking every day is associated with meaningfully lower cancer mortality in adults over 60. Not chemotherapy, not supplements, not any intervention that costs money or requires a prescription. A 20-minute walk. Now let me show you the three mechanisms that explain why. Mechanism 1. Physical activity and DNA repair. When you engage in moderate physical activity, your body increases the production and activity of enzymes responsible for repairing DNA damage. These include enzymes from the base excision repair and nucleotide excision repair pathways, the same pathways that catch genetic errors caused by normal cell replication, environmental carcinogens, and oxidative stress. Research published in Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention found that physically active individuals showed significantly higher DNA repair capacity compared to sedentary individuals of the same age. The effect was especially pronounced in older adults, the very population whose repair capacity needs the most support. Physical activity doesn't just maintain DNA repair function after 60, it actively restores some of the capacity that aging has diminished. The biological mechanism is partly mediated through a protein called PARP, poly-ADP ribose polymerase, one of the primary responders to DNA strand breaks. Physical activity has been shown to increase PARP activity. It also reduces the oxidative stress that causes DNA damage in the first place by upregulating the body's endogenous antioxidant systems, superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase. Less damage enters the repair system. More capacity exists to repair the damage that does enter. Both happen simultaneously. Mechanism 2. Natural killer cell activation. Natural killer cells, NK cells, are your immune system's frontline cancer surveillance force. Their job is specific. They patrol the body, identifying cells that display abnormal surface markers, the biological signature of precancerous and cancerous transformation, and destroy them before they can replicate. After 60, both NK cell count and activity decline. This is one of the primary reasons cancer incidence rises sharply with age, not just because more genetic errors occur, but because the immune surveillance system that would catch them is operating at reduced capacity. Physical activity is one of the most potent known stimulants of NK cell mobilization and activity. A single bout of moderate exercise causes a rapid and significant increase in circulating NK cells. They mobilize from tissues into the bloodstream where they can access sites of abnormal cell activity. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology showed that a single 30-minute moderate exercise session increased NK cell count by up to 50% in the hours following activity. But here's the more important finding for sustained cancer prevention. Regular physical activity, not just single sessions, leads to lasting improvements in NK cell function. Chronically active older adults show significantly higher NK cell cytotoxicity, the ability to actually kill abnormal cells, than sedentary adults of the same age. The surveillance system doesn't just temporarily improve after exercise, it permanently upgrades with consistent activity. This is the mechanism most oncologists point to when discussing why physically active populations have lower cancer incidence. The immune system is simply doing more surveillance. More abnormal cells are being caught and eliminated before they develop into clinical disease. Mechanism 3. Inflammation and the cancer environment. This is the mechanism I consider the most important of the three, and the one least discussed outside specialist circles. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now recognized as one of the most consistent features of the cancer microenvironment. Tumors don't develop in healthy tissue operating normally. They develop and thrive in tissue characterized by persistent, unresolved inflammation. Elevated interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, C-reactive protein, and other inflammatory markers that create a biological environment permissive to abnormal cell growth. Here's what most people don't know. Sedentary behavior, not just the absence of exercise, but prolonged sitting and physical inactivity, is an independent driver of systemic inflammation. A sedentary body maintains chronically elevated baseline inflammatory markers. The tissue environment that results is precisely the environment in which cancer is most likely to develop and progress. Physical activity is the single most evidence-backed, non-pharmaceutical intervention for reducing chronic systemic inflammation. Regular moderate exercise reduces circulating levels of interleukin 6, CRP, and TNF alpha. It increases anti-inflammatory cytokines, particularly interleukin 10. It reduces visceral adipose tissue, the abdominal fat that is itself a major source of inflammatory signaling, even in the absence of significant weight change. What this means in practice is this. Every day you move consistently and moderately, you're altering the internal chemical environment of your body. You're making it less hospitable to the conditions that allow cancer to develop. Not in a dramatic, visible way, silently, progressively. The same way cancer itself develops slowly over years through accumulated daily conditions. Movement is the daily condition working in the opposite direction. If you've made it this far, you're clearly invested. You want to see what happens next. But most viewers enjoy the content and scroll away without subscribing. If this resonates with you, tap subscribe. It takes a second. If not, you'll probably forget this channel exists and miss a lot of valuable educational content ahead. Now, here's the specific mistake that eliminates most of the cancer preventive benefit of physical activity. And it's one almost everyone makes: intensity. Most people who decide to start exercising for health reasons go too hard, too fast, too consistently. They begin high-intensity programs. They push into breathlessness at every session. And for cancer prevention specifically, this is the wrong approach. Not because high-intensity exercise is harmful, but because the immunological benefit curve for cancer prevention peaks at moderate intensity and actually begins to decline at very high intensities. Research examining the relationship between exercise intensity and immune function found that while moderate exercise robustly stimulates NK cell activity and anti-inflammatory pathways, very high-intensity exercise, the kind that leaves you unable to hold a conversation, produces a transient immunosuppressive effect in the hours following the session. The open window of temporarily reduced immune function after exhaustive exercise is well documented in exercise immunology. For cancer surveillance, you want your immune system consistently active and functional, not repeatedly suppressed and recovered. The optimal zone for cancer preventive benefit is moderate intensity, an effort level at which you can hold a conversation but are slightly breathless. Think a brisk walk, cycling at a comfortable pace, swimming, dancing, or gardening at a sustained pace. Any activity that raises your heart rate to approximately 50–70% of its maximum and sustains it for 20–30 minutes. Consistency outweighs intensity every time. 5 20-minute moderate walks spread across the week provide more immunological and anti-inflammatory benefit for cancer prevention than 2 intense gym sessions. The frequency of activation matters more than the peak intensity of any single session. Quick question before we continue. How many days per week are you currently physically active for at least 20 minutes? Be honest. Write the number in the comments right now. The answers I see there consistently show me where the biggest gap lies between what people intend to do and what they actually do. Your number matters, and it might help someone else watching this who is exactly where you were 6 months ago. I promised I'd return to Victor. 6 months after our first conversation, Victor came back for his follow up colonoscopy. He had fully committed to the protocol: 25 minutes of brisk walking, 5 days a week without exception. He hadn't significantly changed his diet. He hadn't started any supplements. He hadn't made any other deliberate health changes, just the walking. His gastroenterologist found one polyp, down from three. The remaining one had not progressed. His inflammatory markers, CRP and interleukin 6, had both dropped into the normal range from elevated baselines. His NK cell activity, which we had measured at baseline and again at 6 months, had increased by 34%. Victor sat across from me at that follow up and said something I've quoted to patients many times since. I spent 6 months walking, and in those 6 months, I felt better, slept better, and apparently my body started doing its job again. Why did no one tell me this 20 years ago? I didn't have a good answer then. I'm trying to provide it now. The research documenting this effect has been accumulating for decades. The mechanisms are well understood. The dose is achievable by almost anyone over 60, and the cost is zero. Yet in most oncology consultations, including many of my own earlier in my career, this information either gets mentioned briefly as a footnote or isn't discussed at all. That gap is why I make videos like this one. Let me bring this together clearly and practically. The single daily habit with the most consistent, most replicated, and most mechanistically understood cancer preventive effect in adults over 60 is consistent, moderate intensity physical activity. Specifically, 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intensity movement, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, or any sustained activity at a conversational pace, performed 5 or more days per week. The three mechanisms through which it works are DNA repair enzyme upregulation, natural killer cell activation, and sustained functional improvement, reduction of chronic systemic inflammation, the biological environment in which cancer develops and thrives. The critical mistake to avoid is either doing nothing because the required amount seems too small to matter, or doing too much at too high an intensity, repeatedly suppressing the immune function the habit is designed to strengthen. Here's what I'm asking you to do today, not next month, not when the weather improves. Today, choose one 20-minute block in your day and commit it to movement. A walk around the block, a slow cycle, 15 minutes of movement followed by 5 of stretching, something you can repeat tomorrow and the day after. The first day is the hardest, the second is easier. By the end of the first week, the habit is beginning to form. By the end of the first month, your NK cell activity is measurably higher than when you started. That's not motivation, that's biology. Which part of this changed how you think about cancer prevention? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if this gave you something you'll genuinely use, share it. There's someone in your life who needs this information and doesn't have it yet. A parent, a spouse, a friend who may already be navigating a cancer diagnosis and looking for every evidence-based tool available. That one share may be one of the most useful things you do for their health today. Subscribe for more honest conversations grounded in what the research actually says. Next time, I'll cover the 5 foods that research increasingly connects to cancer risk in adults over 60, and at least 2 of them are foods most people currently believe are healthy. Take care of yourselves, move today, and understand this. The most powerful cancer-fighting tool you have access to isn't in a pharmacy. It's in your body, waiting to be activated. You just have to give it the signal. Disclaimer. Everything shared in this video is based on published oncology research, epidemiological studies, and exercise immunology literature. It is general educational information, not personal medical advice for your individual situation. Cancer risk is complex and involves many factors beyond the scope of any single video. If you have concerns about cancer risk, a personal or family history of cancer, or any existing health condition, please have a full conversation with your own physician before making changes to your activity level. They know your history. This information is a starting point for that conversation, not a replacement for it.